Chris Webster here, and I just wanted to thank all the people that are members of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Of course, our shows are always free, and members are what help keep them free. Other shows are on Patreon and similar sites and make you pay for content, not at the APN. If you want a little extra and want to give back, then head over to arcpodnet.com/members. That's arcpodnet.com/members to support archaeological education and outreach. Let's start the episode.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Go again.
Welcome to episode 6 of A Life in Ruins podcast. I'm your host, Carlton, followed by my co-host, David Howe, and Connor Jonanananananan. Today's episode is different from previous formats. Today, we don't actually have a guest interview. Today, the three hosts, us three, will be talking about our summers of A Life in Ruins. So a little different format today, but we have a lot to talk about. For our listeners, before the past 3 episodes that we have recorded were actually all recorded in May because the three of us had some pretty busy summers. So yeah, guys, how did everything go? David, how was your summer?
I mean, full of curational excitement. Had a surgery. I pet my dog once or twice. I went all over the country a few times. Yeah, it was good. How about you, Connor?
Oh, it was, the normal. I bought a house, gave my life over to a bank, and did some field work down in Durango. So a lot of sitting in the office, though. A lot of looking at maps, playing with Esri and hating Esri.
What is Esri?
Esri is Satan. They are the company that runs ArcGIS, which is the most popular form of GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems. So it's a product that helps people map and do cool stuff, but they're Satan. Don't send us a cease and desist. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh boy. So hold on, David, you had surgery?
Yeah, I had surgery. I had I couldn't breathe correctly out of my nose my whole life. And my doctor was like, well, you've got a deviated septum. And I was like, well, I got to get that fixed then. And I got it fixed. And now I can breathe way better when I sleep. And just all throughout the day. It's great. Yeah.
What
and then
was that?
We had, as my alter ego, Gabriel Schlovak. If anyone has gotten a prank call from Gabriel Schlovak back in the day, that was probably...
Dude, you're giving away your secrets here, man.
Yeah, dude. What is...
Can't give away your pseudonym.
Let's see. Chris Rowe started at my job as our assistant manager. He's a fellow Wyomingite, a Wyoming student. It's been great. It's nice because we both had Jody as our curation, I guess, mentors. So if I leave, which I've left a lot this summer to go do different various things around the country, I know Chris can just take it over when I'm gone, and I come back. And if there was a fire, Chris put out the fire the exact way I would put out the fire. So it's nice.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, had a
I
giant
have
visit
not
from
heard Jody's name in a long time. I completely forgot that she was at Wyoming for a brief second.
Jody is the absolute coolest. So
yeah. Now she works with me too, which is interesting. It's funny how these she works for Alpine.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's these. It's funny how these CRM, interwebs are. It's someone knows someone. I feel like that's the main reason I got my job is because I knew the guy who was hiring me. So
you knew the guy. Who was oh, right, that makes sense.
Yeah. He was. We were acquaintances. So that makes getting a job easier in CRM. Hot tip for you folks out there, networking.
Yeah,
Solid.
it's definitely it's not your resume really helps in archaeology, but knowing 8 to 10 of the people that are going to be at the place where you work really helps too, which is kind of easy in archaeology, I guess. But
yeah. I mean, it's kind of a small community. I mean, where you study is where you study, and you kind of know people real quick. Get a name for yourself, especially all the conferences. So,
absolutely.
Do you have any good stories this summer, David, from your museum curation stuff? And you said you
let's
traveled
see.
across the country as well. Like, dude, I am so out of whatever happened this summer.
As a FYI to everyone, Carlton has been gallivanting across Europe, conquering and digging holes. So we've been out of touch with him.
Yeah, because we couldn't figure out how to do a group chat and Instagram, so we had to like message each other individually. And I was 9 hours ahead, and it was just a nightmare.
But
Did
you
you get, like,
somehow managed to
600
FaceTime
texts?
me from the field and be like, "Hey, what's up?" And Carlton's just talking to me from the Ukraine with like people speaking Ukrainian behind him, and I'm in like my back office, and he's like, "Oh, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh, hey, man, just working. What are you doing?" And some guy's just yelling behind him with a shovel.
I was so desperate for the English language that I was just,
dude,
I was like
trust me, I
FaceTiming my
understand.
mom in the middle of the field. She's like, "Oh, hey, sweetie, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "Mom, I want to come home." Not really, but
Help me!
Just to hear conversational American English is like, it's like a euphoric feeling when you're in another country. You're like, "Oh man," and you create it.
That's
and we'll get to that whole my eat, pray, love summer of archaeology.
What's
That's what the episode title should be, like, Eat, Pray, Love Summer.
Yeah, I'm officially giving it that. That's beautiful.
Eat, drink, dig. Oh god. Oh.
Did you say dick or dig?
Dig. I did not say dick. I said dig.
Why?
And as also a caveat, I got back 2 days ago, and we were recording this 4:00 Mountain Standard Time, and my brain thinks it's 2 a.m. in Ukraine right now, and I am so exhausted that the walls are moving. Like it is hard to think, and there's
Smelling
just been
colors.
it's the smelling colors, just oh my god. And and today was the first day of classes. So hold on, reeling this whole thing back in, David.
Yeah, I've traveled all over. Went to Tennessee a bunch. Went to New York 2 or 3 times. I think 2 times. What else I do? Went to California at some point. Went to Mexico at one point. It was a good time.
Oh shit, that's right. Okay, yeah, I was trying to like
future,
refresh my mind.
possible future.
Yeah, I was just like trying to refresh my head. I was like, what the fuck was he talking about when he was traveling the country? And I was like, oh right, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I got asked.
Was New York even archaeology related, or was just like visiting family back home?
One could say.
Okay, what would you say it was? How would you describe?
I was visiting some friends.
Oh, okay. Why'd you make that awkward?
I don't know. All right, next.
It's like, was it archaeology related? One could say. It's like, you should have just said no.
Dude, he works for the government now. That's how he has to answer.
Yeah,
So-
I just Instagram popularity is just taking me to like the world, so I just get to go do things all over the place, and I don't get to say what.
Did I see that you?
Oh shit! Okay, okay. Dude, I am fucking clueless as to what you were talking about, and I'm like connecting the dots as you're talking and being awkward about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it. Now I get it. So yeah, Jesus Christ,
Okay, on a segue, yeah. Did I see that you created your own clothing, David? Did you do some sewing?
So, yeah.
that was also the most awkward goddamn question. That was the worst segue ever. Just like,
I did sew some prehistoric clothing with a bone needle and some bison hide. And a
You
giant
scraped
deer
yourself, right?
pellet. Sure. Yeah, I got it from a trapper, you could say. A trapper that the
what would you say? Where do we go again? Are there even trappers in the 21st century? Like,
They're all French.
Yeah. No, I got it from like a trading post website, and I got some artificial sinew, and I got it. So I'm trying to do all that, educational stuff and getting into characters like Bob Ross and things like that.
That was great. Those were the highlights of
in the
the
works.
Instagram, was like seeing you to like go that hard on ethnocynology, your Instagram post. And if any of our listeners who aren't already following should follow, but I'm pretty sure they all do.
I take public education seriously. I mean, yeah. Connor, how was your summer?
My summer was it's been good so far. A little hectic. A lot of sitting in the basement. My company works in multiple states, so we have projects in Utah, Wyoming, Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, all this year. So it's been a little chaotic. Some transmission lines, some pipelines, random other things like that. I don't go out in the field very often. Sometimes I do and gallivant out there by myself and make a fool of myself. And yeah, that's probably what my summer's been. I've got to do some drone work for some pretty cool sites down in Durango, and using kind of the new age drones, you can do some really cool photogrammetry to kind of take pictures of these pit houses that they've been excavating and finding just outrageous stuff, like duck effigies with like heads cut off, multiples of those, huge kind of.
Wait. How do they know they're ducks if the heads are cut off?
It's shaped generally. I think it's an
like
assumption based on.
So it's shaped like a bird. So without the head, because the duck has the bill. So the rest of the bird looks like a bird, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what else are they going to do? Like geese?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, without the heads, like, how do you know what kind of goddamn bird it is?
This is coming secondhand news here, so I'm assuming it has to do with like previous recordations of these things. It's not just like previous findings.
I never thought we'd be able to beat my consultated quote. Like, recordations. All right.
That's a word, dude. That's a word.
No, it is not. Recordations?
Yeah, previous recordings. I don't know. That's a word.
Recordings is
Get out of here.
Recordations.
Yeah, it's multiple.
David, look it up. Look it up, David.
I got this.
Solve this. Fix this. Recordations.
It's a word.
This is just awkward stuff.
Yeah.
No, it is
plural.
not. Bull.
Yeah.
No, hold it.
Yeah, get out.
Recordations.
I think that's a 5-minute silence
our
on you.
fixer's checking it up. Our fixer's looking it up right now. We have like a fixer like Joe Rogan has. We don't. His name's Chris. He runs the APN.
Chris, where that at?
Hold on, wait. Is he here? Oh no, I thought you were talking about Chris Rowe. I was like, why the fuck is Chris Rowe involved in our podcast again?
It's a word, and I call
he had
for
his
a minute
chance to be part of this goddamn podcast, and he declined.
It's typically recordation, not recordations, but either way. My last name is Webster, so you have to listen to me.
Straight out of the Webster's mouth.
Okay, sweet. Okay.
That's a minute-long mute for Carlton. So,
God damn it! I'm just gonna hit my vape. Okay. Fine.
Continuing on,
tobacco, not the devil's lettuce. Let me clarify. Like, it is my Juul pods.
It's fine.
Okay. Back. We found a lot of cool stuff, and it's super interesting. And I got to fly a drone around a site to create some really cool 3D photogrammetric. Oh my god! I'm out. Carlton, you're unmuted. Words are hard.
Was it a mallard? Was it a mallard instead of a duck? Do you know the difference?
It was definitely
how do you know it's a duck without the head? That's what I want to understand.
All right.
Every goddamn bird with feathers looks the same. Like, Jesus.
We are
the size.
What is special about ducks? This is in the Southwest. How do you know it's not turkeys? Exactly. I don't know. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just like,
you are yelling at me.
I don't know why I'm so hung up about the goddamn birds.
All right, let's segue from the avian talk. We are nearing the end of the first session here, so I just wanted to say that I recently, I should have planned this out before I started talking like I normally do. I subscribed to the APN and donated, right? And I got the choice of a couple stickers, and I got a sweet little letter from Chris, the runner of the, ArcPod.net. He says, you didn't have to become a member. But yeah, that was him. But I appreciate it. don't quite have the stickers for your show yet, but we do have a pile of, I can't read cursive. Hang on, let's back up. Basically, he says, always keep up the great work. A Life in Ruins is one of the best shows on the APN. Thank you. If you guys were to subscribe and donate to the APN, you can get choice of these cool stickers, t-shirts, coasters, all kinds of things like that. It's pretty cool. I didn't get one of mine. I was irate at first, but then I read that nice little note and I was like, oh, good time. So,
yeah, subscribe, donate, like $5 will do, and like leave us reviews on iTunes, hit us up on Instagram, Facebook. Let us know what you guys want to hear as well. And yeah, that was an amazing note, and I'm going to donate. I need to donate.
Yeah, I need to donate too.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that right now over this break y'all are about to hear as we discuss more avian topics to try to sort this duckery out. All right, guys. So with that, we'll be back with segment 2 of episode 6.
Are you ready to upgrade your GPS so you can use your phone or tablet to map data? Want to use mapping software of choice on your tablet of choice? What about sub-meter or sub-foot accuracy? Ready to get your GPS position fixed faster than you ever have in the past? I mean, come on, we all know how long that can take. Contact the GPS experts at Anitum GeoMobile Solutions to help transition to the latest mapping technology. Visit agsgis.com. That's agsgis.com or call 1-800-980-4649. These guys are pretty great, and I've used some equipment from them, and Matt Alexander, who is the VP of Sales, is an awesome person and will help you figure out exactly what you need. So agsgis.com, 1-800-980-4649. Hey everyone, Chris Webster here to tell you about all the awesome APN swag over at our TeePublic store. Check it out at arcpodnet.com/shop. You'll find APN stuff, but also some great designs that we've had submitted. Get your Bruce Trigger Warning cell phone case or your Bottle Guide t-shirts. So find the link at arcpodnet.com/shop. That's arcpodnet.com/shop.
Welcome back to episode 6 of A Life in Ruins podcast. On this section, we're going to talk about Carlton's gallivanting around the world this summer, or mostly just Europe, Eastern Europe, the Adriatic. There you go. So, in the Black Sea,
Ukraine is
yeah.
I had a summer, and also I'd like to say Connor just sent me pictures of the duck effigies. I thought he was talking about mountains. He's talking about pottery, and yeah, they're definitely ducks.
Okay, so, there you go. Ukraine's on the Black Sea. The Croatia is on the Adriatic. Is that correct?
Yeah. So a lot of things happen. One,
can you give us the background? Like, where does this come from?
Okay, so I just wanted to get out of the United States. I want to go to Europe. I want to do field work. But so a lot of stuff happened. I defended my master's thesis and passed. So you guys can't
congrats.
Give me shit anymore for not having my master's.
R.I.P. that joke.
Yeah. R.I.P. So past that, did that. I defended it in buckskins. There's a whole thing. Check out the Instagram. Passed it. Immediately after defending my thesis, I drove to Lynch Site, Nebraska.
Sorry, that took me way too long. Anyway, continue. Carlton got his master's, guys. I'm trying to. All right, I'll see myself out. Continue. So it's a big step in your life.
God,
sorry.
Damn it. So immediately after defending my master's thesis, I got in the car and I drove to Lynch Site, Nebraska. So I TA'd for the CU Boulder and Augustana University Field School. My advisor, Dr. Doug Bamforth, was the professor from CU Boulder, and Dr. Casey Carlson from Augustana was the professor from Augustana, of course. Doug is the advisor in my dissertation, and Dr. Carlson is one of the committee members. So I had to work with both my professors. There was another TA, Devin Pettigrew, who's my office mate. Love Devin. It was us four, ran a site. There was like 20-something students. The site was what's called an initial coalescent variant site, circa AD 1300. It is an ancestral Pawnee and Arikara site. It was a awesome field experience. What was really enlightening, the archaeology, we'll get into the archaeology, but Nebraska, basically the entire Missouri River tributary. Basically, the Missouri River, everything feeding the Missouri River over this past winter and spring, these people got hammered with precipitation. They had a really, really intense winter, froze the ground. There was ice and snow everywhere. And then in spring, before the thaw hit, they got hammered with rain. The water had nowhere to go. And there was bridges down, roads down, towns were washed away. And no one in America heard about this because we had the goddamn shit going on with the border, the made up stuff in my mind going on in the border. And so there was millions of Americans that are still suffering. So at the site that we were at, the town that we stayed at was in the floodplain. The site, because ancient Indians, or they're not ancient, but prehistoric peoples didn't put settlements on floodplains. They put them on bluffs overlooking it. That's one, just calling that out there. They're a little bit more intelligent. We couldn't camp. We had to stay at a old Catholic hospital that was turned into basically an Airbnb. So it was a summer camp. We called it Camp Field School because me and Devin had our own rooms. We were like camp counselors. We had all the kids. They had roommates. We had Wi-Fi. It was ridiculous. So the field school was great. We were there for 4 weeks. It wasn't a disaster. The Lynch site has some of the most surveyed geophys in the United States. And so we were chasing a pit. We were chasing a house. And it turned out to be, after 3 weeks of excavating and not finding a damn thing, we realized that the pits that we were looking for were super ephemeral and like they actually got bladed off. So like the last week and a half, we basically put the students on excavations that we did the year before to finish out doing pits and stuff like that. It was actually pretty cool, really amazing. The kids did excellent. Doug and Casey,
like 18 to 20.
Yeah. So, well, we also had a couple others. Yeah, no, yeah, the children. They both Doug and Casey that they did the best job excavating that anyone else has seen from any of their field schools. They did such a great job. I would like to take personal credit for it. I came up with some so Doug and KC would sit back and they would just be in control and they let me and Devin be in charge of the students. And I was just like drill sergeanting. I was just like walking in circles like a shark. I was like waiting for them to mess up so I can be like on them. I came up with some great catchphrases. I was like, hey, your walls are so sloped that Shaun White could win an Olympic gold medal off of them. Or, hey, that floor is so bumpy. It looks like a level from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. And a lot of kids were like, what's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4? Or my favorite though was like, Sophie, if you don't clean up these walls and if you go deeper, we're going to have to hire a team of Sherpas to lead us to the top so we can bring these down. So like that was and the kids were just terrified after a point because they didn't want me to come over and just like harass them or just stuff like that. Be like, hey, after lunch we're gonna have a come to Jesus talk about your unit. Just me being ridiculous, but like they got really good because they didn't want to be harassed that way. So like they clean walls. The kids did great. Super proud of them. Yeah, they did a good job. That was fun. And so we've mentioned it a couple times already, but I went to Europe for 6.5 weeks. And the reason being is I had a conversation with Nathaniel Kitchell before I left Wyoming. And he said, if you ever want to go do field work in Europe, you should talk to Dr. Marcel Kornfeld from the University of Wyoming. So I did. In January, I sent him an email. I was like, I want to work at a Plains Neolithic site in Europe. I wanted to go to find a European analogy to what I do. I study the earliest Plains farmers in Nebraska and Kansas. And, there's agriculture in Europe. So I was like, I want to go work on a Neolithic site. An early Neolithic site somewhere in Europe and try to learn something new, either theoretically or methodologically of how to do this work. So I got a couple hits and the Ukrainians said, hey, we'll take you. So looking back, this was the dumbest decision I've ever made in my life. I just booked a ticket to Ukraine. I booked a ticket out of Ukraine and that was it. And I was just like, we'll figure it out. So I left. Field school ended July 6th. And I got on a plane to Ukraine July 8th. Never been outside of the Western Hemisphere. And thankfully, like a month or two before going, the field director was like, hey, we'll have someone meet you in Odessa. So I flew to Odessa.
But it wasn't even that. You had emailed them and said like a nice long paragraph about like, hey, I'm Carlton. What do I do? And like, you meet here now. Yeah, dude. Yes. So there was like months of conversation and I had no idea what was going on realistically. And their English wasn't that great. I mean, it was good. It was good, but it wasn't
was weird. We weren't talking on email. We were talking on like Facebook Messenger, and they're like, "Where will you be?" And I'm just like, "I will fly into Odessa. I'll be there." I left July 8th, and then they're 9 hours ahead. I get there like July 10th. It went forward in time, and
are you a time traveler? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. And
Hashed out before you
so I landed, and this amazing woman by the name of Kudra, who is an archaeologist, picked me up from the airport, brought me to my hotel, and she like entertained me for the first 3 days. And then we got on a bus. Ukrainian buses are the scariest goddamn things on this planet, because it's not a bus. It is a van where they basically weld seats in there, as well as they have fold out camping chairs to fit more people in. There's no like bus station. It's just where the buses gather. And there's signs on the bus that say where they're going. And you just talk to the bus drivers, and they're like, it's like they tell you how much it costs to get places. I didn't know what to expect. I've never been to Europe before. I've been to Mexico and Canada. Canada is like America light. And then everywhere I went in Mexico was like, basically American holiday, like I've never really had a foreign experience. And and
then you just went right into the fucking Eastern Bloc.
Yeah, so have a good time. I just went. I just left.
I thought you'd been somewhere else before that. Like
no.
You also you might have had some issues with your passport. Is that Jesus.
So a couple things happened. So as everyone knows who listens to this podcast, I have a Juul, and I didn't want to smoke cigarettes.
As everyone knows.
As everyone knows, after all the ridiculousness. So I bought like 50. I had 60 pods that I was taking with me to Ukraine. One of my layovers was in France, and they checked my backpack. They're like, "You can't have these," and they took. First off, a pack of 4 pods is $20 goddamn. So I spent a couple $100 to feed my nicotine addiction in Eastern Europe, and those goddamn Parisians took my fucking Juul pods. I had 4 left, and they weren't even like full pods. They were like the ones that I was like, "Oh, I'll smoke the rest of this later," or whatever, or vape the rest of this later. Oh God. And yeah, there's issues with my passport because like this is fucking ridiculous. So my passport expires in November, and some countries have a law that's like, if your passport expires within 90 days of your travel, we're not letting you in. It's like, what's the fucking point of having an expiration date? Like, it's still clearly valid. So why do you fucking care? And especially if it's a layover, like, because they were like, "Oh, well, Denmark and Croatia." It's like, I'm not staying in your fucking country. I'm literally getting on another fucking plane. Like, just let me through. Like, Jesus H. Christ. It was so aggravating to have to talk to these people and like, "Well, what is your purpose here? Like, what do you know your passport expires?" And it's like, and secondly, I got that passport photo taken when I was 17 years old when I was a varsity athlete. I don't look like a varsity athlete anymore. Just FYI, I have a beard.
Your level of agitation is why they do this to you. I hope you know that. You're the reason we look bad. Rolling in with your backwards hat, puffing your Juul, being like, "Oh, bro, like I gotta get to the Ukraine."
It was a nightmare. So I get to Ukraine. It was fine. I get to the site. The first site. So the whole plan was I was going to meet this team of archaeologists from the university in Odessa and a place called Zavalia, which is in western Ukraine. It is a Neolithic site. Beautiful place. First off, Ukrainian roads have not been worked on since 1990. That's like 99% positive that that's legit.
So the fall of the Union led to worse roads?
Yeah, because there's no money to like update the roads. Beautiful country. It basically, what I noticed like when I was driving, I was like, this is Nebraska. I looked around, I was like, if there weren't, if it looked like Nebraska. The whole fucking country did. It was great. I loved it. I love the plains. It was the plains. It was perfect. I show up. So the way the Ukrainian archaeology pretty much works is that archaeology is an anthropology. It's history. First year history students at university have to do a field practicum. They have to. So it's basically 17 and 18-year-old Ukrainian history students have to go on expedition.
Well, and like in the U.S., that's like a later, like junior, senior year of college thing.
It's usually later. So these are kids. I bought a tent while I was out there. First off, the exchange rate was amazing. It was like 25 hryvnia for $1 American. And it wasn't like the prices were inflated. Like, it's not like you would still spend the equivalent of $5 American on something. It was like food was like 30 to 80 hryvnia. So I was eating for like $2 or $3. I lived like a king. I loved it. It's just so cheap. So I show up. Yeah. Oh, so much vodka. So we get to the site. I meet everybody, and everyone was like, "Why are you here?" Everyone told me I was the first American they've either known, and I was sure the first American to come to work in archaeology in Ukraine. Like that was like a fact. I thought other people had come. They're like, no, you were the first American. And a lot of and Zaporizhia or Zavalia, they were like, yeah, you're the first foreigner to actually come here and work. Period. I don't know Ukrainian. That was also part of it. I don't know Ukrainian or Russian. I went to another country and I didn't know the language. There was so much I'd redo about this trip. Like thinking back, I was like, I'm just going to have fun in Europe.
How do you say hello?
Privyet in Russian.
How do you say yes?
Dyakuyu in Ukrainian. Yes is tak in Ukrainian.
Tak, yeah.
And da in Russian.
So you know the three.
So yeah, I know. I got passable, but a lot of them kind of knew English. It was an amazing experience there. It was an early Neolithic site. Like they are not even supposed to have. It's called LBK, light banded pottery culture. They didn't even know that we're in Eastern Europe. So we were working on like the earliest and the most far eastern LBK site in the world. It was an amazing experience. We had like at the times like 40 to archaeologists, kids. It was amazing. And I found some really cool stuff. I would highly check out my Instagram or the Life in Ruins because I posted a bunch of stuff there. The field director there, Maciej, he's from Poland. Basically, Ukrainian archaeology, they only have 400 archaeologists in the entire country. It is the largest country in Europe, which surprised me.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, only 400 professional archaeologists. And they really don't have funding for archaeology. So what happens is basically Germans and Poles show up with funding and they want to do their own projects and they basically pay Ukrainians to do it. And so they use Ukrainian professors as assistants and they use Ukrainian crews and they pay the Ukrainian crews €4 a day. A day.
That's interesting. So they have like,
and the kids were like, "Oh my god, this is so much money!" Because it was like 120 hryvnia, 150 hryvnia, and the students loved it. They were like, "Oh wow!" And then Maciej, who's awesome, was just like, "Yeah, if I was to bring Polish archaeologists out here, they would want like €10 an hour." So, and the kids did a good job. Like what was crazy to me is that it was basically like going back to early 20th century archaeology. They're using all metal equipment, canvas tents, metal cooking ware, and they were using shovels. Like we were digging out this entire site with shovels. And I'll post pictures on the Instagram of like how big this site was, and we were just digging it out. It was great. I loved it.
Was it all local? So local kids going to the local university kind of thing?
No, half the crew was from Odessa and half the crew was from Zaporizhia.
Okay.
And that was so weird is that, hold on, I want to make sure I got the towns right because I'm so freaking horrible at remembering what everything was. So, okay. So the site that I'm at now, the first one is Zavalia. I think I said that. And the next one is Zaporizhia. So Zavalia, half the crew was from Zaporizhia, which is in Eastern Ukraine. Half the crew was from Odessa. The ones from Zaporizhia spoke Russian and the ones from Odessa pretty much spoke Ukrainian. And they're not like dialects, they're part of the same language family and they're still different languages, but because they grow up in that country, they understand each. So like it was so hard for me to try to learn the language because they were talking two different languages. So they would talk with each other in two different languages and respond in their own language and they could understand. And it was a fucking nightmare to try to follow along. Because
like I couldn't, Russian and Ukrainian and Polish.
Yeah, and I couldn't pick out what was going on. Yeah. And I love that site. It was really fun. I guess real quick, one of the coolest things they have is they have an initiation ceremony that dates back to 1903 from the first Ukrainian archaeologist. And so after your first 2 weeks of field work, you get inducted and it's basically like a fraternity hazing ritual. I've like just to deduct it into that. And they put me through it and I got a cool archaeology name and they really liked my presence. And my archaeology name is Chumak and it means traitor. And it's for like, I liked it. I thought it had meaning. It's like because you did like because they have a huge thing in Ukraine about the Chumak that they were salt traders that would travel the globe trading salt.
Traitor.
Oh yeah, I thought you said traitor. I was like, no,
traitor. TRADER. So it's like basically like
is the Russian word for traitor, and I was like, that's not it.
No, it's Chumak. It's Chumak, and basically they're like, you've come such a far distance and you've taught us a lot because we it was great and it really meant a lot. It it was really cool to do all that and to go through that experience. The funniest thing before we take this next break is when at the beginning of the ceremony, we were at this place called White Rock next to the site. It overlooks the river. And the legend is that they used to sacrifice virgins there in like 10,000 BC. Probably not true. But anyways, so before all this starts, basically the field director brings everyone out, and basically people that are coming back for a second time, he does a speech about them, gives them something. And the entire time they're speaking Ukrainian Russian, I'm just sitting there nodding my head, just like trying to follow along. And then at the end of this guy named Simon, who's a grad student, like brings out Leonidas and is like talking to Leonidas. And then Simon pulls out a knife, and I'm like, why is Simon pulling out a knife? And he stabs Leonidas in the stomach. And I was like visibly like, holy shit, I just witnessed a fucking murder, because like red started coming out and Leonidas just fell and everyone's just laughing. I'm fucking terrified because this whole conversation has happened in a language that I don't understand or speak. And then he starts getting up and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, fuck, am I next? And it's like, no, he had a bag of tomato juice under his shirt. But even still, it was like an 8-inch knife.
Oh, that was on your Instagram.
Yes.
You just looked flabbergasted.
I was like, what the fuck? And that knife was big. Like he could have gone straight through that bag and like killed him. I was so perturbed. I was like, holy shit. And then once I realized that it was like a prop thing, and I was just like, oh, dude, I had a heart attack.
Well, on that note,
yeah.
Go ahead. Do you want to finish your story?
No. I got a second part of it. So that's what.
Okay. Yeah. We'll continue the murder he wrote on the other side. So, peace.
Hey, I'm Chris Webster, and this is your Wild Note tip of the month for October 2019. As we move into the off-season for much of the Northern Hemisphere, you might be wondering what to do with your fancy digital data management software. Well, here are some ideas. WildNote can be used to help catalog artifacts in the lab. Just export a pivot table and import into your existing database. Create new forms to manage proposals and report writing tasks. Not all forms for data collection have to be exported. They can just be used for organization and internal data gathering. Finally, test out new forms for the next field season. Check out our safety forms or build your own. If you aren't using WildNote yet, head over to wildnoteapp.com. That's wildnoteapp.com for all your digital data collection needs and a free trial. Hey everybody, Chris Webster here, and as we head into the off-season for much of the Northern Hemisphere, it's time to buckle down and write those reports. As we all know, the time you work on the report has to be accounted for. That's where Timular comes in. Timular is a time-tracking app, but it also has a physical component. Just flip the Timular cube to the side that represents what you're doing, and it stops time on one task and starts it on another. Check out Timular over at arcpodnet.com/Timular. That's arcpodnet.com/TIMEULAR.
Welcome back to episode 6 of a Life in Ruins podcast. We're continuing our discussion with Carlton about his travels around Europe. So, Carlton, you dug at multiple sites over the summer, right?
Yes, I did, Connor. So while I was in Zavalia, the crew from Zaporizhia was like, hey, we have another expedition going on. We're going to leave July 28th. Would you like to come with us? And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. So I talked to the field director, and he's like, I don't know when this project's going to end. It might be August 5th. And that would have left me 10 days on my own to try to figure out, because I was flying out of Odessa the 15th to go to Croatia. So they offered me to go to Zaporizhia, and I was like, yeah, I'll go. I'll go on another expedition. That sounds great. So we left the 28th with the crew from Zaporizhia. We went to Kiev for 3 days, the capital. I got to see a bunch of museums there. I did see some museums in Odessa as well. And I got basically a tour of Kiev. Simon, the guy that stabbed Leonidas, his parents live in Kiev, so we stayed at his parents' flat in Kiev, and he showed me around the city. They were very excited to have me try McDonald's in Ukraine. It was great. I had a fun time. And then we took a train to Zaporizhia, and in Zaporizhia, it is actually the home of the Cossacks. It is like the cultural center of Cossacks, whatever, in Ukraine. So it has like a very significant national city to them. There is an island in Zaporizhia because it's right next to, it runs along a major river called Korditsa Island. It is a nature preserve, and that's where the site's at. And it was an early Bronze Age site. I don't do bronze archaeology, but it was like, I got to do cool shit. There's burials there. So we show up, and immediately we're with the new field director. His name is Oleg. And if you think archaeological circles in the U.S. are small, archaeological circles in Ukraine are extremely small. He didn't know English. He knew German.
And you were fluent in German, right?
I took 2 years of German in high school, and I got a C average. That was
Pump
fun.
the brakes. Didn't you take like a year of Russian in college too?
I took a semester Russian, and the only reason I didn't fail was because I showed up every day, and my professor was like, "You tried your hardest, so I'm not going to fail you, although you have a 25 in the class." And so I met a lot of good friends. I made some really good friends in Zavalia that I still talk to. And basically the culture there and the archaeological community is so small. The word spread across the country that there is an American archegologist here to work. So I showed up to Zaporizhia and like
he joined the Gulag willingly.
And like they knew who I was. And because they had all their friends were posting media, everyone was talking about me. So I show up.
Showed up to the paparazzi.
But at this site, it was different. It wasn't college students. It was high school students in the history program who were doing field work. Oh. So now I'm like with 13 to 16-year-olds now. And then the guys that came with me from Zavalia. But like the community in Ukraine is amazing because a lot of people, they clearly don't go into the field, but they stay with their field directors throughout their life. And every summer they come back. So these camps are huge, and especially in Zaporizhia with Oleg, he is so loved. Not to say that Dmitry from Zavalia wasn't loved. He's fucking awesome. Oleg's older, has been around longer. We had like camp moms. We had like camp babushkas. It was like a camp from the 19th century. I shit you not, because there were canvas tents everywhere. And I got the fucking red carpet treatment. I got to sit at the chief's tent. I had meals brought to me. People were asking my opinion. I felt like an American liaison. And the entire time I'm in this country, I'm reading these books about the Zulu War from the Victorian era. And like my ego just exploded, which everyone who knows me knows that that's the worst thing possible, that my ego grew even bigger because I'm sitting there, they're asking me questions about like how to do archaeology in American context. I'm being fed. And then like, it was great. Even though like Oleg really, I know passable German, we could talk.
What does a war in Africa have to do with that scenario?
I was just thinking about, so, okay, bringing that into context, I was just thinking of like Victorian era.
Please do.
Like, being in a different country, like thinking of like colonial context, not like I was out there to colonize, but like American liaisons and just being like thinking back to the age of exploration. And then I'm like this solo American on my own in a different country where I don't speak the language. It was just amazing. I just felt like almost like Darwin, like learning things. It was just this awesome experience. And everyone wanted to know my opinion. I got to work on my own. They gave me my own site. I got to show them how to do. First off, when I was leaving Zavalia, you sat around the campfire and everyone says something nice about you, and they of course had to translate it for me. But I got names like God of Trowel and the Machine, and I know a lot of you are like, the Machine, that sounds like the Bert Kishner thing, but they said I worked like a machine, so they were calling me the Machine. It was just, I was fucking dying at the dualities between that, because they don't do trowel excavation. They sometimes do, but their trowels aren't like our trowels. Like I have a 4x6, their trowels are like 10x10s. Like they're basically shovels, handheld. It's nuts. So yeah, my ego leaving there was already massive. And then I show up to this site and I'm getting like my meals brought to me. I'm being on tours all over the place because Oleg is a archaeologist out of the museum there, and he's so excited to have me and to like show me all this stuff for going to museums. I'm getting personal tours. I go to this Cossack museum, and they had all this underwater archaeology, these boats there. And I'm in there getting this tour, and then the director shows up, and then he doesn't know English, but he talks to Simon. Simon was my fucking boy this entire time. So if Simon's listening to this, you're my fucking man. He was like my person, like he was my translator, everything, and he made sure I was taken care of. He's great. I miss him. He runs the New Archaeology Instagram, which has been on our Instagram talking. He's like, hey, they want to give you a private tour of this museum, and I'm like, sweet. And so I'm getting this private tour of this museum and like how they're doing the underwater archaeology and how they are keeping the wood intact. And I'm kind of like, why are they doing this? And then like they point, I ask them, like, how come you guys give me this tour? They point up and there's a banner with the American flag on it. And I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, the American consulate in Kiev funds all of this restoration. And I was like, oh, sweet. And basically the thing was like, your tax money is paying for this. So I figured I could give you a private tour. And I was like, all right, sweet, I guess, man. But it was really cool. I had a really fun experience. We did some, it was on this beautiful island. I was there for 10 days. I met so many wonderful people out there, and like just to talk about, because they do historical archaeology in this context of finding the things, and we as American anthropologists do it in the context of human behavior. It was a different way of looking at archaeology, different schools of thought. So they let me excavate in an American way. And so like I was exposing the whole floor with the artifacts, taking photos where they do 20-centimeter vertical levels. And if they find something, they leave it intact and they dig around it. So it looks like a bunch of columns rather than floors. And so we were having these discussions of the difference between the two and like the different information you can get these things. So it was really amazing. And like, I didn't show up to be a dick. Like I literally did their way for the first 2 weeks first. And I just did it. I was like, I'm just having a fun time being here and learning. And then when they started asking me like, how would you do this? That's when I came up. So I didn't show up like, you guys are so fucking backwards. Let's do it this way. Let's do it my way. I literally did it their way. And when they got comfortable and saw that I was like, not an idiot, that they were asking me like, what are the differences? And then once they saw my work with the trowels, when they asked me to do more of it and then to show them, and they asked me to come back, both sites. The first archaeologist, Dmitry, and then the Polish director, Maciej, threatened to break my legs. So I wouldn't go to Zaporizhia. And then when I was in Zaporizhia, Oleg threatened, he kept asking for my passport. And I was like, why does he want my passport? And he's like, oh, I'm going to throw it in the river so you can't leave. And I was just like, I want to go home.
That's never a good thing to be asked.
One thing, yeah. Yeah. So they actually want me to come back. They really want me to come back. And they said, we would like you to bring more Americans, like a team of 5. Bring more Americans. We'll give you your own units. Come work with us. We really want you to come back. And while I was in Zaporizhia, I was asked to join the oldest non-government organization in Ukraine. And it's an archaeological organization called NASH. It is the New Archaeological School. And I am now a research associate with Ukrainian archaeology. Because one thing I learned there, which broke my heart, is that other archaeologists from other countries, they come and they basically just use the Ukrainians for their own benefit. But I came to collaborate. I wanted to make new relationships. I wanted to help. I wanted to help bring money to work with these guys because they're good archaeologists. It's just the state of their country, and it just sucks. And then after Zaporizhia, I went to Odessa for 3 days, met up with my friends who weren't able to go. Just got another private tour of a museum, and I had an amazing time in Ukraine. And I'm gonna go back next summer. That's the plan. I probably won't be there for 4.5 weeks again. That was a long time to be in a country where you don't understand what anyone is saying.
You went to Croatia too, right at the end?
I did, and that was. And then I won't go into Croatia, but at Hell Gap last year, where I was a field director, I had a Croatian student, Eddie Grabar. Fucking love Eddie. He listens to our podcast. Eddie, what up? And he wanted me to come to Croatia, and I told him I would. So when I was doing my stuff in Ukraine, I was like, hey, man, I'll come to Croatia. And he's like, I have field work in Cyprus and then field work in Jerusalem, but August 15th, I will be back home. Come to me. And so August 15th, I flew to him, and he took me on a 9-day tour of Ukraine or of Croatia. We went to all these museums. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I had such a fun time. It was like my own little vacation before I came home 2 days ago. We're recording this August 26th. I got home August 24th.
You're like 10 monsters in.
Yeah, we're down in coffee. And today was my first day of class. So I fell asleep in class today, hit my head on the desk, and I had to apologize profusely because I was like, my body thinks it's 10 o'clock. So yeah, do you guys like just have questions? I know that was a lot for all of our listeners, but I mean, what questions do you guys have?
Bro.
Yeah.
Cool. Moving on. No, I'm just kidding. Well, there's like there's a legacy at the University of Wyoming with like Ukraine, Croatia. So there's kind of like a relationship that's been building for quite a bit of time. I know Dr. Jim Ahern has worked in Croatia, on biological anthropology, more so. Yeah,
he does Neanderthal excavations in Croatia.
Yeah, so it's cool. I mean, I know a lot of people at the University of Wyoming end up collaborating with these Eastern Europe folks.
Yeah,
so it's awesome to keep it going, man.
I got calls back from Croatia, Poland, and Ukraine. And the woman who is my point of contact, or the scientist, of my point of contact in Ukraine, I didn't even meet her. I'm not even sure the relationship that Marcel had with her. Yeah, so she's the one that hooked me up with this. I never met her, and people there didn't really know her. The Polish wanted me to spend like $30 a day just to join them, and I said, go fuck themselves. And I was originally going to go to Croatia at first, but the project fell through. So I went to Ukraine, and I'm so glad I did. I've sent pictures, like they bought me a Ukrainian flag, and they all wrote their signatures and well wishes on it. And that thing is full of signatures. And I miss them, and everyone has been talking to me. I made some really good friends over there. I mean, shit, I don't even speak the language, and they asked me to join a research team. Then they want me to come back with more Americans. And David, you're coming. Connor, I want you to come.
Yeah, just tell my boss to give me 2 months off, and I should be able to go.
I mean, I'm probably just going to go back for 2 weeks.
Hey, man, I'll go to Poland. I'll go to Russia. I'll go to Ukraine. I'll go anywhere over there.
We might be going to Moldova. We're still looking. I will keep this up. And I've had people on our Instagram hit us up who follow us and follow the ridiculous Instagram that I posted on our podcast. Insta hit me up privately. Like, how do I join? Like, how did you do this? So I'm taking applications. If you want to come, if you want to be part of Carlton's Fab Five in Ukraine, you let me know, and you send me a resume, because I gotta look good. I'm the trowel god. Like, I have expectations. I need my trowel demigods with me.
He'll send you a pink bro tank and everything. You'll be part of the Fab Five.
Ooh, yeah, my face will be on it. It's pink with cyan blue lettering and trim. We're gonna look hot. We're gonna look fresh.
Have you seen my dual wield trowel technique?
Shut up.
Oh.
I've seen it.
I was gonna say, you were gonna be like, no, I haven't, and I was gonna be like, well, it's not efficient, but it's cool, and then you just shit on it anyway. All right, next question.
So you said that I'm gonna ask you just a chronology thing. So the first site you went to is Neolithic age.
New Stone Age. That's what it means. New Stone Age. And that basically means pottery is a thing. That is the introduction to pottery and agriculture. So you have the Paleolithic, and then you have the Neolithic. So basically you go from stone tools, hunter-gatherers. Neolithic is representative of agriculture and pottery. People are being sedentary. And then...
Did you notice any similarities from, kind of what you study to what you saw out there?
Oh, dude, fuck yes. It was crazy. We were looking at these pit houses, and I'm like, these are fucking familiar. The pottery is more intricate. It's all, it's the same shape pretty much. The designs are different, but generally the shapes are pretty similar. The house, the settlement patterns and the housing structures are extremely similar to what I look at the Central Plains tradition. The only major difference is storage, where the LBK cultures have these giant square storage pits that have cooked clay walls and floors, where Central Plains tradition houses, their pits are bell shaped and they're circular around the house. So subsistence strategies, settlement patterns, and material cultures are rather similar. By the way, European lithic technology is bullshit. Those were the ugliest fucking points I've ever seen in my life. Yeah,
they were they had a lot of weird blade tech. They just took the cheap route. Whereas
that was cool, and that was one of the things. That was one of the things that the Ukrainians always talked to me about. It's because I got all these private tours in museums and showing these collections, and I'm looking at blade cores, and I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. Yeah, it's a blade core. I'm like, we don't have this technology in the Americas. I've only seen this in pictures and heard about it. So just to go there and see a lot of this stuff, especially when I was in Croatia looking at Roman sites, even the same thing with Odessa was a Greek colony, to see Greek artifacts when I was at the museums. It was amazing. I mean, David, you've been to Rome. I imagine you had the same impression being there.
Yeah, it's nuts. There's just so much cool stuff everywhere. And it's just it's not what we see here, in a basic shovel test, Yeah.
So it made them happy that I was very happy to see all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I didn't take it for granted. I mean, some of those photos I took, the first pottery I found out there, which ended up turning out to be pottery that was non-local and actually from Romania, and it was earlier than it should have been for where we were for the time that we were looking at. First thing I found, and I'm just glowing with excitement.
Did you see any other kind of tools out there? And do you have any radioactive?
No, we didn't screen the dirt. We basically just dug it out. So anything small really wasn't found. So we didn't find a lot of flint. Okay. So it's mostly just pottery and cow bones. is what we found. Because they were pastoralists, these LBK sites. That was another major difference between CPT and LBK was, they had domesticated cows.
LBK, is that linear band ceramic?
Yes, it is.
You're going to have to explain that to people because you're just tossing out lingo because you're so damn cool.
I did earlier, but I will do it again. It is a archaeological culture in Europe that migrated out of Anatolia, I believe, so the Middle East, into Europe. And what was cool was that this site in Ukraine looked exactly the same as LBK sites in Germany.
Interesting.
It was nuts. And so there's part of this Maciej, the Polish guy, he was the director, but there is a overarching director who's in charge of this entire project through Southern and Eastern Europe, looking at LBK, who's funding all this out of Germany. I have his card here.
So he's asking the bigger questions about. Yeah,
Dr. Thomas Saleh. Coolest guy. He loved me because I called him boss and like, yes sir, no sir. I was like, he loved me. And he also wanted me to come back. So he's like kind of the dude who's funding all this. So he's in charge of all these LBK projects throughout the area, throughout basically Europe. So I met a lot of archaeologists. I had an amazing summer. It was, and I, a part of the summer was a lot of soul searching, just to like be on my own, to take care of myself, to go do something different. I Forrest Gumped my way through Eastern and Southern Europe. I don't know how else to explain it. There should have been more planning involved. There wasn't because I'm an idiot. And I kind of like the first week I was in Ukraine, there was a day I had like a mental breakdown, like a panic attack. I was like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? I was like, I'm literally in fucking Ukraine and I have no game plan for how I get back to Odessa. And I basically just like Forrest Gumped my trip and I just got opportunities presented to me and I just took them and it ended up working. I don't know if that was just a luck of the dice, and if I did that again, you'd hear my body on a story on CNN about American tourists found dead in a river. I'm not going to do that again. But I had the experience I want. I met some great friends, did some great archaeology, and I'm going back. If you guys want to come, you let me know.
I'll go with.
Yeah, you got to go, dude. Your family's from Odessa. You gotta go back to the homeland.
All right.
And because this podcast is called A Life in Ruins, would you do it again? Would you live your summer in ruins like that again? Are you planning on it, Carlton?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, we're doing it. So doing Lynch Field School Part 2 next summer, and then going back to Europe. I only spent $400 total in Ukraine for 4.5 weeks. So it's cheap. Come with me. We'll make it a trip.
Sounds good. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that wraps up our episode, and in 8 to 9 months, we'll find out if Carlton has any radioactive children. We'll see you guys next week. Next month.
Jesus. All right. Thank you for that, everybody. We are out for episode 6. Thanks for listening to A Life in Ruins podcast.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Life in Ruins podcast, and you can also email us at alifeinruinspodcast@gmail.com.
And remember, make sure to bring your archaeologists in from the cold and feed them beer. All right, boys, what do you call a phallic-shaped boulder left over from a glacier?
Oh, Jesus. I wasn't expecting anything of the sort.
Hang on, let me actually think about this one. A phallic-shaped what?
A phallic-shaped boulder coming out of an iceberg?
Left over from a glacier.
Left over from a glacier. I'm actually excited to hear the answer for this one. Yeah, once. I'm actually like, I'm ready.
I'm actually stumped. Can you give me a hint?
No, fuck you.
Does it involve a duck?
No, not. It's called an erotic. Oh,
that was good.
Because of glacier erratics. Yeah,
I like it. I like it. No, that was good. No. Yeah, you can stay.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Glacial erratics are objects like rocks that are usually left by moving glaciers that are like kind of anachronistic in their spot, like where they're left. That's what that joke was.
That was good. That was a good joke. That was a good one.
Thanks, David.
This show is produced by the Archaeology Podcast Network, Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle in Reno, Nevada at the Reno Collective.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks for listening all the way to the end. This is Chris Webster with a quick reminder to check out archpodnet.com/members to help support us in archaeological education and outreach. That's archpodnet.com/members. Now go listen to more podcasts. 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 Now go listen to more podcasts.